And share my screen. Okay. So see where we left off is, when we're successful, which is right here in this add fact. So after this call is successful, does this make sense that, here we successfully added fact? Why is it like here? And, maybe not down here.
Because if there's an error, you want that to be caught beforehand.
And I know this Axios call, this is going to pause right here, right? We pause right here for this Axios call. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. If it works, we're going to go to this next line of code and we're going to have it. If we don't, yeah, we'll get thrown in this catch, like an error occurred, like a 422 or something. So this is where we know after this post, if we get down to this line, it's like we know we've been successful. So we want to navigate. All right, so to navigate, we can use that, use navigate hook from React Router DOM. So hooks are, many different libraries can write their own hooks. We'll write our own hooks eventually. So hook is just kind of like, you can think of hook, a React hook as like a specialized React function. There's some rules to them, but they're like specialized React functions. We can write them. React can have some default ones and other libraries can write their own. So React Router DOM has this use navigate hook, which we can use. Use navigate. Because what I want to do is when we're successfully, I want to use that navigation object from that hook to navigate, maybe back to the facts. I think that makes sense, right? I don't know if I'm going to need to do anything with this response. Maybe we'll see. Let's just see if we can navigate back to the facts page after we successfully added the fact to the database. And it's already like breaking console. So I'm getting this error. Use navigate may only be used in the context of a router component. Okay, so if I go look and try to understand what that means, if I go to my index.js, notice my data provider is wrapping my browser router component. So my data provider is like the most high level component. But I'm trying to use this use navigation hook outside of that, like in my data provider. So it's not like wrapped in that context. So I could maybe in the context of a router component, I wonder if I could throw it, if I switch the order. So now my data provider is going to be wrapped in my browser router. See if that fixed it. And that looks like that did fix it. That is okay. So I'm going to do new. All right. I don't see it in my UI, but if I hit refresh, it is there. So I'm trying to think, first of all, do I want to like switch these up? I'd say for now, it really doesn't matter, but now I can't use, like, probably there might be some stuff with the router I can't use my data provider for, but I think this will be fine for now. I think this is a fine way to fix it. But what we can't do is, or let's say, let's do this just for a trick. Let's say I, for some reason, don't want to switch the order of these. Maybe like I want to, like my browser router wants to have that data provider. Another way I could, screw it, you know, I don't want to go there. It's just, there's a way to fix that, but let's just do this. This is already confusing enough. So now I can wrap that in my, I can change that order. Does that make sense? Or is that confusing?
It makes sense, but when would we not want to do that?
Well, now my browser router, and like I said, it might, I'm trying to wonder, I don't think it's gonna come up, but like now my browser router can't use that like use context hook. Like it could not grab the data from the data provider context, which I don't think is going to be a problem for what we're doing.
Okay, that makes sense.
So let's say my browser router, I wanted like my facts. I couldn't give the facts to the browser router because the data provider's in it. So there's like this nesting concept.
Is there any way to put that use navigate that you created somewhere else, so it's not so much of a problem?
I mean, yeah, I could, if one way I could do that is in my fact form. It's available here. Did I define it? I could grab it from there. Let, you know, const navigate equals use navigate. I could define it in my fact form. That's available there. And then I could pass it to my function. And then in my function, so in my data provider, I don't need to do it there. I could grab it from the function. I pass it like, so I define it in my fact form and give it to my data provider in the function. That would work too. But that's not changing. It's navigating, but it's not changing my UI. So there's actually, I want to add to state and UX navigate step. So I want to actually add this to my state. So before I navigate, let's go ahead and set facts. Because it wasn't updated in my state, let's go ahead and add that res.data and then copy my facts. And almost like 4 steps if we want to like really break this up. So when I add the state, that's really adding it to the UI. So we could do new fact, text, 2 + 2 = 4. There we go. See, this like step of navigating, is this always going to be a part of an ad? It's like, I don't know. Depends on how your UI is. We could have even like set up our facts differently. So like it would have mounted, it would have done the use of like, it gets weird. So I hate to say it, there's not like, I can't give you like, here's the clear steps to do this.
No, and I know that.
But
But it's just because of that, it's just like harder to get my head around.
yeah.
I'm sure everybody else feels the same.
I mean, this is a big, like, to do the doing a create, like there's a lot going on here. Like we had to do just all the stuff with the form, like getting the form just working. And like this first step of getting data from form to this method, like that was a pain, right? Then we need to add it to the database. So we need to like get the right call for the database. We need to send the right data. Then we need to add it to the UI so it shows up in our UI. And then, it's also just nice to like automatically navigate. Here we'd probably also, if we have an error, we're probably going to want to like not just console.log the error or alert. We're probably going to want to do like some form stuff to be like, oh, hey, you didn't enter a number, or hey, this is like some other error. So yeah, let's do the same thing, but it can get repetitive. So there can be some repetition. So that was create. So let's think about update. For this one, once again, I'm going to say, yeah, we probably need to like get the data from form, right? So const update. I'm going to take a fact. Console.log. Update fact. So now I can go in here. I have this update fact method. I can add that there. That's pretty similar to what I did with the create. So it's like, okay, there's some like repetition. Okay, so now I want to like grab that method from my context. This is kind of becoming, it's like once I got the create, this is going to be a little easier because I can kind of go off what I did with the create or the add. So now I can pull that update fact method off. And, I actually did a lot of this work in my form to make it reusable. So now it is a little more kind of copying and pasting and like just changing up the things I need to. So now, if we have this ID, we want to do the update. And so I'm going to do the update fact, and I'm going to send it the object, a text, username, source, stars, ID, and the state, the ID. So let's test this. So now I go like edit, just update stars and like that. Then you need to do inspect, console, click edit, handle submit call. There's my update. Looks like the stars have been edited and the source that's been edited too. So that's good. Like, and I'm calling that in my data provider. So that was a little easier just because we had spent a lot of time with this fact form, making it work for both create and update. So now I can go back to my data provider. Okay, that step's done. And yeah, now this is probably going to be similar. Like, okay, I want to next try to add that to the database. Okay, so try catch here. Kind of do the same thing. Okay, let's grab let's grab the response. Let's have this await for our Axios. What's the URL here or the method? Put. It's going to be the URL or the path.
API/facts/ID.
Yeah.
Except it would be, could you do interpolation there?
Yeah, do interpolation. Right, this one. So when I did my fact
ID.
form, I send the ID. So that fact should have the ID. So I can do fact.id. And then I can pass it the fact. It's about log. For now, yeah, we're just kind of doing these steps one at a time. Let's just see if I can add this to the database. Don't care about navigating or updating my UI. Just doing these one at a time. Because this is complicated. So the more you can break this one subtask into more subtasks, the easier it's going to be. Because you're going to find errors like this quicker. Because I've only changed really, like this is pretty much all I've added from my last time I tested. So I know my error is like somewhere kind of in this area, right? Or like this was like the last change I made. And if I look at this error, I see unexpected reserved word await.
So you need a sync?
Yeah. It's kind of like annoying they can't give you a better like message. Like, did you
Feel
mean
that way too. Sometimes errors are super useful and sometimes it's like, what?
Yeah, that one, I mean, it is telling like, hey, it's not expecting this. I need to use async. You know, you would think they should be able to be like, oh, you need to make this function async, but they didn't. So it wasn't super clear, but it did show me exactly. I mean, it did show me what the error was. So I need to make this function async. So that's good. Let's try to like update the stars to 2 and like Google to, I'm going to edit. Looks like that was successful, right? We have a 200 status. I can go look at my data. The source has been edited. That stars is 2. I could also go back to my facts. Once again, it might not be edited now. Like, which one did I edit? 5G causes COVID. Okay, so this is not updated, but if I refresh and do like, refreshing is going to do essentially another Axios call. And if I scroll all the way down, I can see that's actually been updated to my database. But yeah, it didn't update like to my state. So that's what I need to do next. And then navigate. Those are going to be pretty similar. So this navigate one will do the same thing where like, you know, I take this navigate. Well, this is going to have a navigate param, and then in my fact form, I'm going to pass that as this, like I'm going to pass it from there. Just like I did with add fact. So I define my navigate here in this form where I can actually use that hook. And then I pass it down to this function in my data provider where I can't use the hook because I'm like outside of that. So how do I not add to my state, but this one is going to be update to state. How do I update my state? Like this is the problem. Like I was trying to get you to like you really need to understand like the map, the filter, those functions and like the spread operator. So if it's an update, what do we use? Like I want to go through all the facts in my state. So I have my facts in my state. I want to go through all of them and just update the one
You
that
need
was
ID.
changed. So what?
You need ID, right? I guess you're already getting that, but
I need the ID. And this is where I want to return a new array. So I want to go through all of my facts, return a new array with just that one fact that was changed, updated.
That be filter?
Not filter, that's close. Filter is used, it doesn't change any of my objects, it removes them.
you need find.
Find is going to find just one object.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I want a new array, it's map.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through all my facts in my state. Does the fact.id, does it equal the res.data.id? If it equals, if the thing I'm looking at, if the ID equals the response.data.id, the thing that was just updated, I want to use that as my new, like I want to have that be my new state. If not, just keep it the same. This is going to be my updated facts. And then we can set facts. Updated facts. I think, yeah, it's fine to navigate back to the facts. So with our add facts, if we're creating something, I want to just take the response.data, add that to a new array, and then copy the facts. It's an update. I want to go through all of my facts, check to see, do they match the ID of the fact that was changed in the database. If it does, use that. If it doesn't, just keep it the same. It's like what that is saying. Then we'll set that to the updated. Then we'll set our facts to this new state we just created. Then we'll navigate to our facts. All right, so I can go to edit. Roll this flat, bang, bang, bang. There you go. Let's do 3 stars. I'm getting this error. Put HTTP localhost 3000 API facts undefined. Is this like a React router thing? Is this a Rails thing? Like what's going on here?
It looks like the error is in your data provider.
Yeah, it looks like it's happening line 59 in my data provider. So line 59, looks like it's happening right here. Or that's where it's catching it. Where is the error happening though?
It's with your ID, right?
Yeah, that ID, API facts undefined. So if I go look at my server, it could not find fact with ID undefined. If I look at my params, like that's what I'm doing an API. I'm doing a put request to API facts undefined. That does go to my update method in my facts controller. And then it tries to find a fact with ID that's equal to undefined. And then my server gives back a 404 saying, hey, I can't find that fact. So that's a client error because, yeah, for some reason, this fact.id is undefined. Okay, so what did, I'm not 100% sure why. So if I go to edit, I mean, the ID is right there. Okay, so maybe I deleted it or something. Let's go to my fact form. Update fact state.id. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my, okay, now what I want to do here is I want to do a, just going to do a console.log of my fact. I swear like I had logged this and saw that it did have an ID. So let's just log it just to see it. Inspect, I'm a little confused because it's showing an ID right here. So why is that not getting it? Fact, what? Okay, that doesn't look right.
It wouldn't be state.id, would it?
No, I think it has to do with how I'm. Okay. This is a really weird, this is going to be hard to find. It's actually, my error's right here. But notice when I log my fact, it's like this weird thing. It looks like it's like a function or something. I don't know. It's a little weird. What am I doing here with my update fact? My update fact, let's look at the definition. This expects 2 parameters, right? Let's not even care like really what they are. It's 1, 2. I mean, I guess this first thing I'm expecting to be a fact. But when I log it, that is not a fact. That's a weird like thing. So let's go to my data provider. This, and no, sorry, let's go to my fact form. Okay, here's where I'm actually calling that function. Remember this update fact, and this is more a coding thing. When I define that function, I say, hey, if you use this function, give me a fact and give me a navigate object. Like I'm expecting the first param to be like a fact object and that navigate to be like the navigate thing from React Router. So really, how many arguments does this function have right now?
Really just 2, right?
It's 1. I have an extra.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have an extra
You'd have to
set of
put that,
parentheses.
yeah, you'd have to put that navigate outside.
Yeah, for some reason there's an extra set of parentheses. So now that's just like, that's that weird like function thing. So I used the function wrong. Now I'm passing it 2 things. Now here's the first argument. That's my fact. Now there's the second thing. That's the navigate object. Okay. So let's go to edit. I don't think I actually changed anything on here. And now it's working. It goes back, it updates my state, it navigates. Cool. It is all working. So we now have our CRUD done on this facts. All right, so let's do a git add. It's going to commit back to CRUD. Yeah. Quite a bit of stuff, right? Just to do CRUD on that. So I think the best way is, go back through this video, go through the steps, do it on your own, code it out, and, kind of see it. But as you go through it, if you can, and this is a skill, and it's hard because this changes depending on what you're doing, but in your mind, you're trying to like break it up into these tasks, doing one small thing, one small testable thing at a time. Now, these steps might not always be the same, but you might find there's like some similar stuff. Like, eventually you're going to want to add to the database. Well, if you add to the database, then you're probably going to want to update your state or your UI. And depending on how you set up your app, you might want to navigate back to a particular page. So here's what we're going to do next. And because this is all happening we're doing all of this CRUD stuff, our state stuff in the data provider too. And we have like all these different, we're using React Router to like go to like different forms and different pages, which can create, like a nice user experience in some ways, kind of doing one thing at a time. So did I stop my server? I did. So let's do this. We're going to create a new model. And let's do this in Rails first. Or maybe we should go the other way. No, let's do it in Rails first because it's going to be, I would say for now, do your models in Rails first because that's like the easy part. So I'm going to create, and I'm just going to kind of, does anyone have a model they want to create? I was just going to do thing, and thing has a name. Just be
Is
very,
this just for demo? It's
yeah,
not something-
this is for demo. Maybe I will do thing just because it's generic. Rails G model thing. Thing has a name. Be very, very simple with this one. If I have a thing model, what is the controller going to be named?
things.
API/things.
Yeah, so Rails G, and then I want to append it with API things. And then we'll do,
I have a question.
yeah,
The Rails G model thing named, why do you not have to put string? Or was that what?
if I don't put string, or if I don't put the attribute, it's going to default to a string. So I have a model called thing, and it's going to have an attribute called name, and it's going to be of type string. So I'll generate my controller API/things. Cool. All right. Let's go into my seeds file, Command P, so seeds.rb. Let's do something a little different. So let's say I want to use some fake data. I want to create a lot of things. So we really haven't talked about third-party libraries too much. I mean, React is a third-party library. Rails technically is. There's a lot of these third-party things that we can use to help us with, our app. What's one thing that we have installed, or there's actually two things on the JavaScript side that we've actually added to our project. Does anyone remember? What two things are we using in like our JavaScript side that we did not get by default?
Yarn.
Axios?
Axios is one of them. Yarn's like a more of a tool.
Okay.
So it's one of them is Axios. Axios, remember we had to do like a yarn add Axios. The other one,
Node?
it's not Node. Node's like another
Node's
tool.
another tool.
The other one, here's kind of like our list. It's React Router. By
Oh, yeah.
default, we don't have React Router. And so we added Axios and we added React Router. And that's to our package.json. So that's like the front end side, but there's also a whole bunch of like Rails stuff we can add. One of them is this faker gem. So how I add this, and I can like copy this and throw this in Slack. Add in gem file. So I'm going to go to my gem file. And let's just add this. And we can kind of, for now, just add it like right here. Doesn't really matter. Just underneath like the boot snap, just can add it under there. So I'm adding this gem called faker. And what this is going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to like require this faker gem. And then in our app, we're going to be able to do this, something like faker.name name. And that's going to give us like some fake data, but it's going to be realistic looking. And there's a lot of stuff that faker can do. Like, I don't know, maybe we'll do like hobby. So faker.hobby.activity will give us a random hobby. So what I need to do is add in gem file, then in Rails app directory, run bundle. So you stop your server. So Control C. So if you have a server running, now this is not your client folder. This is going to be your Rails server. So let's say I had my Rails server running. I mean, it's not even going to allow me to do it because I need to, it's saying, hey, you need to run bundle install. So I'm going to run bundle as a shorthand. I could do install, but bundle will do it. And see how that's like fetching that project. It's like getting that project. Now I can start up my server again, Rails S-P 3001. So to add gem, you add to gem file as per docs. You would look at the docs of the gem and then run bundle in terminal. So two things you have to do. And now I have this faker library. So here's what we're going to do.
It seems like it's strictly for the purposes of building a database, right? Because it's just a bunch of, it's kind of like that fake API call that we did from that RecRes site.
Yeah, now because maybe I want to like have like, I want to go in and I want to create 1,000 things. Do I want to go in and type 1,000 things? Like that's going to take forever. What I can do is I can do like 1,000 times do, but I kind of want it to be like random. I want it to be like realistic looking. I can do like thing dot create. It's a name. I'm also up here. I'm going to do a thing dot destroy all. Let's just, because it said in the docs, let's require a faker. It's kind of like an import in JavaScript, require it. I don't know if like the hobby is going to have 1,000. I might get a lot of dupe. Let's just do 100. We don't need 1,000. Go ahead and throw this in Slack too. But yeah, there's a lot, like Faker has like a lot of data. Like you want to do like an address. You can like fake city names, street names, addresses, mailbox. So you get this fake data, but it actually kind of looks like real data. So now that we have that, let's go in and I'm just going to do a Railsdb reset. Oh yeah. So it's saying I have one pending migration because I created this model things, but I didn't migrate. So let's do a Rails migrate. So now I have that data. Now I have that table. Now I can do the Railsdb reset. Just go ahead, step into my console, thing.all. Yeah, and it does look like there are some duplicates like coffee roasting, but that's fine. I could probably go in my database.
It said the size was 5, but that looks like a lot more than 5.
That is for my,
Oh yeah, okay.
so yeah, I could do things, thing.all.size. So maybe I do want to do a validation. So what I could maybe do, I always have to Google this because I can never spell like uniqueness, like Rails validate uniqueness. Is it uniqueness? So I could go ahead and I could go in and validate that the name is unique. So I go to my thing model, validates name, uniqueness is true. So now I'm not going to have duplicates in my database with with that name. So I did this 100 times. Like I do that in my loop 100 times, but let's do a Railsdb reset. And it looks like it only successfully occurred on 76 of them because there must have been some duplicates. But now I'm going to have like 76 unique things in my database. So yeah, that was pretty straightforward, right? To, it might sound hard, like, oh, you got to create 100 things. Well, I can just do a loop and use Faker to create some random data. All right. So there's my model. Did a basic validation on my model. Did some seeds file. I have a thing model. Let's go do our routes. Let's not look at these either and cheat. I want to get all the things. What do you think this looks like?
Things.
Get/things. If this was an Axios call, let's do the Axios call right here. This would be like a, let res equal await Axios.get API things. Right? That's what that would look like. This goes to, what does this go to?
API things.
It goes
Things
to
hash index.
what is React? Okay, it goes to things hash index, but what is this actually? I think you kind of like it's a what it really is this things right here. What is that kind of referring to?
The controller?
Yeah, it's the thing. Go to the things controller and go to the index method. So if you get if someone doesn't, Axios.get API things, there's that part. Go to the things controller to the index method. Cool. Someone does a get things :ID. Where should that go?
Things hash show.
Yeah, go to the things controller, go to the show method. And that would look something like this. They need to give me an actual ID. What about if I want to create something?
Post.
Post. Yeah, it's going to be a post for create. What's the path going to be?
Things.
Things. That goes to my things controller. What method do we get? What do we have this go to?
Create.
Create. And if this were an Axios call, it would look something like this, let response equal Axios.post. Goes post. Just going to copy this. Let's do the puts. Seeing the connection between these two. So we do a put API things and then the ID of the thing, and then we send it the object. This one would have the ID in it because not that we could update it, that would not work, but could send it there anyway. Why would this not even work? What are we going to do in our things controller that would prevent this from happening? Like, let's say someone sent data that looked like this. Why do we not even have to worry about this case? Like someone being bad and trying to update the thing with ID 1 to ID 3, because we don't want to update the ID. What are we going to do to this? We're going to sanitize that. We're going to do the params.permit thing. Sorry, params.require thing.permit name. So if they give us an ID, we just get rid of it. They can give us whatever they want, but we're only going to allow this key. So this needs to be a put things ID. And that goes to our update method. And we can have our destroy. The delete request, so that matches that delete things ID, and that goes to the destroy method. So that's what it looks like in JavaScript. And like this is, if someone does this in JavaScript, it's going to do this. Does that kind of make sense? How these comments, kind of looking at these in a different way. Okay. So let's now go to our things controller and do these. So let's just do this quick before action. This is where Rails is nice because, yeah, what do I want to do? Well, I want to set thing. And I only want to do this on the show, update, and destroy, right? Let's go ahead and define that def. So let's do our private section. Def set thing, and this is going to be at thing dot find params ID. I'm also going to want a thing params. What is my thing params going to be? It's going to be params dot require what?
Name or ID.
This one's going to be, we need to permit the thing first. This
Oh,
we
yeah.
need to require the like the name of the model, which is thing. What do we permit? The name.
Would be name, yeah.
And this is what I was talking about. Like, I'm not going to permit the ID. Like, I'm only permitting name. So if they do send me an ID in that thing, I'm just going to ignore it. Cool. So those are like my two helper methods. So now we can do our index method. Render JSON. What is this one? Thing.all. Show render JSON that thing. Our updates or our create thing equals thing dot new thing params thing dot save. Like this is like the exact same stuff, right? Render JSON thing. Let's render JSON errors thing dot errors dot full messages. And then we want to say, hey, that was not successful. Our update's going to be very similar to this. Except we don't need to do this. We just need to grab the thing that we do in our before action, and then I call the update method, pass it the sanitizer. That successfully updates, we can render it back. If not, we'll give back the errors. And then my delete's going to be a lot like my destroy. So my destroy is going to be a lot like my show. I'm just going to destroy it from the database. Should not be 4,000, should be 422. All right, let's open up Postman. I slacked that out too. Let's open up Postman and just test this really quick. So do I have my server running? I do not. Rails S-P 3001. Missing action key on your routes. It's not really telling me where that's coming from. Okay, so I changed my routes file. Oh, right there too. I forgot into 2. Oh, I need to start my server because that didn't work. Cool, so now that's working. Sick. can do a GET request to API things. There's all my things. I can grab one thing. Uninitialized constant API things controller things. What is that? Did I spell something wrong here? Okay. So let's go to my things controller. It's like trying to find this uninitialized like things. So I bet if I go down to this, it's right there. So I was calling things.find. I want to do my model, use my model to find it. Did that give me an error? Yeah, that also showed me line 36. So if I would have spent a little more time reading that error, it showed me right where that syntax error was, or I guess that lot error. Cool. So now I can test that. Let's go ahead and update this thing. So I'm going to do thing name SDF. I don't need to send those other stuff. Doesn't really matter if I do because I'm going to sanitize them. So I can update something. I can post something by just that URL, the one. So that's changed. If I try it again, I get an error because it's already been taken. And then if I delete it, that deletes it. If I try to delete it again, I get an error because it's been gone from the database. Cool. Git add dot m. Cool. So that is done. Pretty after coming from React, right? That's like, oh, that was pretty easy and quick. So yeah, the Rails part of this for now is definitely much easier. And a lot more repetitive and follows that convention, but cool. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's just call it 12:15 and go from there.
Would you mind slacking out that controller file, please, so I can get caught up?
I think I did. It's on Slack.
Oh, sorry, thanks.
And I'll re-Slack out the repo too, because I just pushed up as well, but I'll just make sure that's up to date. I'll be right back. I'm going to hop off just so I can post this up to YouTube.